Hello, my health freedom loving friends. Misty Carlfeld here, and I'm here with Marissa.
Hello.
Who else is here?
Come on in, buddy.
Oh,
Hey.
Hey, buddy. Yeah, he's my man.
Look at
He's my
him.
man.
Oh my gosh, we've been getting so many smiles. Baby Cyrus is in
Say
the house. Oh my goodness, you guys, this is so exciting to be here with really my family, you know, and I missed them terribly. I'm all emotional because I'm like, we only get today.
Yes.
We only get today. Baby Cyrus has been walking around or crawling around anyway, on the coffee table underneath, getting your toys,
Yes.
eating a cucumber. I mean, this kid, he is a riot. He actually really likes my little Lily.
Yes, he loves Lily.
Don't you?
He's a little flirt, aren't you, buddy?
He is a little flirt. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so excited, you guys, because there's so many stories that Marissa shared with me along the way as CPS was traumatizing their family and had stolen this precious baby. And, you know, thank you again to everybody who worked so hard to get Cyrus back home with his loving family.
Thank you so much.
You can tell he's thriving being here.
Yes, he's doing a lot better. We've had a lot of progress, huh, buddy?
Yeah, that is amazing. So, yes, I know. Oh my gosh, all smiles over here. But there were some things that Marissa shared with me along the way, really about her faith, that I really was asking her if she would share today. So we're just going to have a conversation. Yeah. She's going to fill me in on her faith, what got her through the trauma of CPS, and then how she's been healing from, you know, PTSD induced by the police and the state and CPS and the hospital and everybody involved. But I was so amazed because how old are you, Marissa, if you don't mind?
21.
21.
Yes.
I certainly did not have this maturity in my faith at 21, which obviously speaks to her parents, who are amazing.
Yes.
But also speaks to you.
Have an amazing set of parents.
Yes, you do. You do.
Thank you.
So I remember when we were talking about this. Okay, cool. You were saying you just kind of knew.
Yes. So this kind of all goes back to honestly the beginning of my marriage. When I married Levi, we would pray together all the time, and one of the things that we started to pray for before we even started trying to have a baby, my husband really wanted a son. And I was reading one day about the story of Samuel and his mom, and how she prayed to God for a son, and basically, you know, promised to dedicate him to God, and if he would give her a son. And I was so inspired by that. We both wanted a son really bad, and so I was like, well, I'm going to do the same thing, right? It's got to work, right? So I remember praying that, and Samuel, he was she dedicated him to God, and he worked in the temple. But I was like, you know, we can't do that today. So I remember praying. I was like, you know, God, if you'll give me a son, I will dedicate his childhood. I'll dedicate him to you completely. And I don't even know what that looks like right now. Right. But, you know, in whatever way you see fit, like I'll do that, and I'll do everything I have to. So I prayed that. My husband and I prayed for a son. And then we had Cyrus. And at one point we got to this place in our marriage where we were at a really good place. Life was good. We had everything we wanted and hoped for, more than we needed. We had a healthy son, everything. It was perfect.
And why did you pick the name Cyrus?
Okay, so Cyrus, this was our family was in a Bible study, doing a Bible study on King Cyrus in the Bible, who was called of God to do great work. And he was called out by name before he was even born. So the story of Cyrus is absolutely amazing. And in the middle of it, Levi was like, that's what I'm going to name my son. I'm going to name my son Cyrus. So he picked that name early on. And when we were at this place in our life, I don't know, let's see, what point was this? It was before Cyrus started getting sick. Everything was perfect. And my husband and I were like, okay, we've taken care of our family. Now it's time to do stuff for the kingdom of God. It's time to move on and, you know, do more things and see what God has for our life. And we were trying to pick, hey, what ministry should we get involved in? What purpose, like, should we look into? We wanted to create a legacy for ourselves and for our children. So we were talking about it, and we're like, well, I think this is something we're going to have to like pray for and ask God to open a door for us, because we wanted it to be like God chose this for us, right? So we pray together every night, like, God, show us what you want for us. We are two willing people. We'll do whatever it is, what ministry you want us to get into. Well, we're ready. Like, we're willing vessels.
Oh
Open the
my
door
goodness.
and we'll walk through
Oh
it.
my
Right.
goodness.
So, we prayed this quite a bit. I prayed for also a way for me to be able to share my faith and witness to other people. But very specifically, like something that we're going to enter into, and that's going to be what we do for the rest of our life, right? That's our contribution to the kingdom of God. So as this is all happening, within a couple months, Cyrus started getting sick, and he started his vomiting. And, we were taking him to the different doctors, just trying to figure out what was going on. And then after his first hospital visit, there was no lack of prayers for him. There were just so many people, friends already, who were praying for him before CPS got
And there
involved.
was no lack of you trying to
No.
figure out what was going on.
There was
either.
no lack. There was no lack, for sure. So after this, we were praying and praying. We can't figure out what's going on with him, right? At this point, we identified that there's a pattern and a cycle that he's in, but we don't know how or why. And so we keep praying, and a couple days, I think it was a couple days before, I was praying, and I got this feeling that, I think that whatever is happening, this is either going to teach us something, or, because we're praying, asking God to heal our son or to give us answers. And, it's not that he said no, but it's at least a not yet. Right. And why is that? I don't know. But for us, we're just like, okay, what can we be learning out of this? Is it supposed to be used for a purpose, or, what is this for? And I was really kind of just like, no, I don't want that. He just needs to get better and we can be done with this. Right. And especially after we left the hospital. And
why did you go to the hospital?
We went to the hospital because of his vomiting. The pediatrician sent us there.
Okay.
So he could stay hydrated on an IV.
Okay.
So we were there, and they threatened to call CPS on us twice, actually, the doctor, because we wanted to take him home. He was already doing better. He stopped the vomiting, and we were telling them, okay, like at this point, you've run all the tests that came back normal. We've already gone through several of these episodes with him, and we can like take care of him better, right? He was getting worse there. So he had stopped the vomiting, and there was no, that was it with him having all the tubes in him and everything. He normally would be like happy and 100% back to normal, but he was actually getting worse when he's supposed to be getting better.
Right.
So we're like, we want to take him home. We'll take care of him there. If anything happens, we have a checkup on Monday.
Yeah.
And the doctor said, no, if you left, we would, she was like, you're no prisoner here, but if you left, we would call Child Protective Services.
You're not a prisoner.
And I was like,
but
oh my
we're
goodness.
Take your child
yeah,
if you leave.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I remember telling my husband, I was like, I don't even want to be on the radar. I don't even want CPS to, because he was saying, well, we didn't do anything. So even if they do investigate or something, there's nothing here.
But that's not how it works.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't even want to have our name anywhere in their system, anywhere. Right. I don't want any of that. I don't want an interview. They don't, because they're not just, right? They can find anything. I was like, what if they're just upset because we didn't vaccinate, right? That's a reason they take kids all the time. Mm-hmm. So because of that, it was mainly the CPS thing. That I was like, oh my word, I just felt like something was going to happen there. And I kept telling my husband, and anybody I would tell, even my family, they're like, you didn't do anything. There's nothing, right? It's fine. And that sounds right and just, but
because everybody operates under the assumption that CPS is there to help injured.
Yes. And
I really truly neglected, really truly abused children.
Which I thought too.
Right. Most people do.
I had just very recently, up until that point, just started hearing a few stories here and there. And at first it was kind of like, that's crazy. That's a one-off story. That's horrible. And then it's like another one.
Right.
And then I just started
must be
picking
doing
it up.
something wrong, or the dad must be on drugs or something. Right.
And by the time we got to this point, I had just about picked up like, okay, this is like bad. It's corrupt. It was easy for me to believe that it was corrupt because it was a government entity. Right. So I was like, okay, this is bad. At that point, I knew it was bad, and not everything I know now. So I was super super scared, to be honest. And I remember I believe this is the day before Cyrus was taken. And he was in another one of his episodes, but following his episodes, you can kind of tell, okay, his first day is the worst, and the second day, and then, on the third day, he like starts to get better. He'll act sick, but he's not actively vomiting.
Okay.
And then by the next morning, he'll be like 100% normal self.
Right.
So where he was that Friday that he was taken, in his episode, he was kind of looking a little lethargic and sick, but not vomiting. The next morning, he'd wake up fine, right? So that day after I woke up, I had canceled the appointment, and I woke up. I, saw those phone calls.
Okay, but wait real quick. So he was in the hospital, and then the Monday that you called, but didn't you have some time?
Yes, we did.
So you had some time where you were going to the doctors and
Yes.
the checkups.
Yes.
So how long was that?
That was, let's see here, about a week.
That's what I thought
Yeah.
too. That's what I remember too. And so for about a week, his weigh-ins were fine. He was doing still the cycle, but you were still trying to get to the bottom of it.
Yes.
And so to me as a mother, by the next Monday, like you were crashing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because you've just gone through this really stressful time.
Yes.
When your kids are sick. I've had 4 of them. I totally
Yes.
know. And you're up and you're nervous, and then you go to
Yes.
the hospital, and then you're scared,
Yes.
and then your body finally goes, okay, now you can,
Yeah.
now you have to rest
Yeah.
in order to keep going.
That's
And so it
absolutely what
totally
happened.
made sense to
Yeah.
me. I know people online were like, well, maybe it made sense to me that by the
Yeah.
following Monday, you were like, your
Yeah.
body was done.
And it was a long week for sure, because they discharged him on a Friday, and then we went home. I believe it was that following. I don't know if it was that weekend. He was doing better, and my family actually we had a birthday party for my dad. It was all good.
Yeah.
And then my family was in the process of moving, so we were over at my parents' house just helping them get packed up, and spending the last bit of time with them before they moved away,
Right.
as it was planned, right?
Right.
So absolutely exhausting. And then that Monday, we had a follow-up appointment that the doctor at the hospital set for us.
Right.
She said it. We went to that appointment. The next day, we had another appointment with our naturopathic doctor. So Monday appointment, Tuesday appointment, and then Thursday appointment, right? So we'd already done 3 appointments. And by the Thursday appointment, he was sick again. So when he's sick, he doesn't sleep by himself. He sleeps upright on me or my husband the whole time. Doesn't get put down. So, as far as sleep goes, there was no sleep happening. And then with all the vomiting, it's like, 10 loads of laundry a day, and then just my husband and I switching off with him. So it was amazing.
You're already going through such a hard time.
Yeah, it was exhausting.
And then the stress.
Exhausting for sure. So I remember actually when we went to sleep, it was super late. I mean, it was like 5 a.m. that my husband told me. He was like, if you wake up exhausted, like just call and cancel, right? I was like, no, I think we should just go in. And he's like, well, I mean, if you're exhausted, right? And we always go to every appointment together. I know somebody asked before, why couldn't like just one of you take him? But even since I was pregnant, all of my prenatal appointments, Levi went with me, and all of his update, appointments, anything, checkups, we've both been there all the time, just both of us. My husband is very blessed. He was self-employed, so he could work his schedule around that, and we're always doing it together. So it happens in the morning. I wake up and I was like, oh, I have a sore throat, probably just from not getting enough sleep.
Right.
And so Levi's like, call in and cancel the appointment, sleep it off, right?
Right.
So, and he was like, I'll take the baby, you go back to sleep. So he takes the baby, I go to sleep, I don't know, a few hours, and I woke up feeling a little bit better, turned my phone on, all these messages. I have one from the social worker. Immediately, I got so sick. I was just so sick. Because I know, okay, now there's a case open, right? My worst fear. So I took a screenshot of it. I sent it to my family. I was like, okay, pray for us. We got to figure out what to do next. And, after we kind of try to talk things through, and we discussed, okay, let's get an attorney, maybe write up a letter, something, just kind of trying to get on the right track. We don't know now I know what I would have done. If I could go back in time, I totally know what I would have done, but we didn't know. So we're trying to figure things out. And then by the evening, my husband's like, okay, I'll just take you to your parents' house, and, you can stay there. They get help with the baby, and we don't have to go to our scheduled dinner, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, no, I think we should go. I feel like we need to go. Like, let's just go. I'm feeling better. It's fine. I'm tired, but we'll go and we'll see him and we'll have dinner and then go back home. So we go there and well, the most important part I think is the day before. I believe this is the day before. It could have been 2 days before. But it was the day before. And Cyrus was still sick. I'm also doing tons of research on the internet. Like, what could this be? Just researching, talking to, I actually talked to some different doctor friends on the phone, just trying to figure this out. And I kind of felt like I was getting nowhere. But I mean, I knew we're going to take him to every doctor we need to. If he
Yeah.
needs to fly across the country, we're going
Right.
to figure it out.
Right.
Right. But I still was incredibly discouraged. And I remember Levi took the baby. I went into his nursery and I was just like on my knees in the nursery praying, like, God, give us direction. What can we do here? Help us find a way. And then I thought, okay, I think there's something else here that, because for me, I just wanted just heal him like
Right.
that overnight. It's done. He never vomits again. Let's move on with life, with
Right.
our perfect little life. He was happy,
Right.
and that's good.
Right.
But I really felt strongly that wasn't what was supposed to happen. So I was like, okay, I don't want to push it away. And I remember I prayed. I was like, whatever this needs to be used for, I'm willing, we're willing, use us, this family, as a willing vessel to get done whatever needs to happen. And I remember praying, I was like, even if it's suffering, I was praying that the suffering would be on our side, like mine and my husband's, right? Because I don't want, I want the baby to be fine, but I was like, whatever your will is here, let your will be done, not my will, but your will be done. And I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of scary after I prayed. I'm like, did I just pray that? And I was like, no, go for it, like just
Right.
all in,
Right.
right? And so I prayed that. My husband and I prayed it together again later that evening, and I was just like so nervous afterwards. Like, I know, okay, that was the right thing to do, but what could it be? You know what I mean? If we're completely willing, what could this be? And so then the next day when that happened, I remember what I prayed the day before, and I was like, oh my goodness, this, automatically I'm thinking, what if they take it away? But then I'm thinking, no, they can't. We didn't do anything. And then I'm like, okay, but what if they do? And I'm going back and forth and back and forth. And I just kept asking. Some people said, later when they saw that video, like, oh, you handled that so well. If you would have seen me the rest of the day leading up to that, it was horrible. And I feel like I normally can keep a good straight head on under pressure. But that whole day before there was anything definitive, and I just thought, what's going to happen? It was horrible. We were at our friend's house having dinner, and I was just sitting on the couch, like sick. And I remember my dad came up to me and he was like, look, it's all right. It's going to be okay. Come get some food, just relax and have, everything's going to be all right. And so I tried to relax, but I was so stressed, so
You
stressed.
could feel it, like,
I could just
energetically.
feel it. I was like, oh my goodness. So, and then,
Feel it.
yeah. And then, our friend who was an ex-police officer was saying the same thing. You guys didn't do anything. You're totally fine. You're totally fine. They'll close the case, just, take care of everything on Monday type of thing. And everybody's saying this. And I'm like, oh, this is just like, I was so stressed.
Like,
and then
but I can feel it.
I know, exactly. So
My mama intuition's going off.
Yes. Well, and then also there just the several prayers and I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place with it. It's a really
No.
long story.
No, you aren't. Great.
But all the prayers kind of felt leading up to this point. And when we left our friend's house, and the first thing we saw the officer, which I mentioned to you earlier, we didn't know how they found us or anything, right? Which later we found out was they illegally tracked through his cell phone carrier, my husband's phone, without a warrant, right? So we saw the officers, and immediately I knew.
Gosh.
We all knew, in the truck, my sister, we were all like, oh my goodness, we're not just getting pulled over for,
Right.
Anything random. Like, we know. And I was just like, no, like, I can't believe it. And then when we actually got pulled over, they started talking to us. I kept trying to say, okay, whatever. I was telling myself, whatever I say to the officers when they talk to me, when they're asking, about Cyrus, that's going to determine whether they take him or not. And so I felt so much pressure on myself to, say everything just right. And then at the same time, I was like, no, there's nothing I can say,
No.
right? And then clearly I could see, because I'm trying, I'm begging, I'm pleading, right? Like, I'll do anything. I'll go with them to the hospital. You can be right there. I don't really care.
Every
Just keep
mom
me with
watching
him.
that could feel your sweet intention. The fact that those police officers could take your baby,
Yeah.
I mean, it was horrific to
Yeah.
watch, because
Yeah.
every sane person
Yeah.
watching you could
Yeah.
feel how much you love Cyrus, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it was barbaric.
Yeah.
It was absolutely barbaric.
And then the one officer, I remember when he pulled me out of the truck. I was, oh my goodness, I was praying back there so much. I was just praying and praying and praying. And I remember I saw on my watch come in a message from my mom, and she was like, "I'm praying for you, sweetie. You're gonna have the strength to get through this." And I just like, I prayed again, and I said, Lord, let your will be done. The same thing again.
Oh my goodness.
And I could feel so much weakness. I was shaking. In fact, when the officers opened the truck, I grabbed one of their hands because my knees were shaking. I thought I couldn't even stand up. I was so scared. And I was like, I don't even know. I mean, I don't know how I'm not going to pass out, right? From just fear. And this overwhelming sense of fear was so overwhelming. I just remember praying, like, God, please take this from me. Like, please take this from me. I'm not going to have the strength, to do it on my own. And so I prayed that, and I felt, like a weight lift off of me. And there was peace. It was still fear. I have a hard time explaining this sometimes because it's like it was still so painful and I was so scared. But there was still a peace. Like I knew, okay, if this is in God's hands, he's gonna take care of it, and he's got it all in control. But then I was also too like, well, how far is it gonna go?
Right.
If I'm praying for him to use us,
right.
What is he gonna use us for, and in what way? And
Right.
and what is this for? And at this point, I had learned a little bit more about CPS too. From that day, I was already looking into stuff and talking to different people, and so I'm even more scared about what my son could be going into. So just fear, and then like that bit of peace. And I think that's why, obviously, if I could go back in time, I think I would have even handled that differently, dealing with the officers and everything. But just even that, being able to, I had that bit of peace there.
Yeah.
And
it was so raw, and it was so real. I mean, really. But you know what's interesting? I don't know if you saw comments like this, but people have even asked me, like, was that filmed afterwards? Because
Really?
it seemed like it was like acting or something.
Wow.
And so people were, when they saw, especially Stu Peters.
The documentary.
Yeah, and they're like, did they film that afterwards? Like,
No.
did they recreate it? And I'm like,
No,
no, they didn't. That was the real footage.
Yeah,
but a lot of people are like, well, how did they know to get their phones out and all this stuff?
Yeah.
So maybe you can answer that directly.
Yeah. Okay, so one thing we do know, I think for like most people would probably know, we've already been involved like kind of politically for since the start of COVID.
It's hard to explain Diego if people don't know Diego.
Yes. If you know it, yeah. Well, one thing that we do know is always, if you're ever having any interaction with law enforcement or anything, to record. Because you'll need this later if you're mistreated. And for me, I've always had, treated officers with respect, because, you could judge them individually. But in this case, it was clear they were all violating our rights or watching it happen and not saying anything about it. Right. And so that was the problem with all of them there that night.
Right. And how many ended up being there?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if we have an official count. It was like 20.
Okay. Like 20 police officers for your family.
And then when I was looking around, there were so many like bodies, and some of them were like the ambulance, there were firefighters. So there were just a lot of them. Right.
Wow.
But I knew to record, and actually this, my sister called Lisa Bundy, Ammon Bundy's wife, and he got on her phone, and we actually had it on FaceTime. And my sister, Miranda, who got arrested before she was arrested, passed the phone back to me. And he was like, Ammon was like, what's going on? And I told him, I think at this point we already arrested Levi, or they were about to. And I was like, they're going to take the baby. They're going to take the baby. Like, what should I do? And he was like, well, you should get on Facebook Live. And I was like, well, I'm going to record it. I already planned on recording. We were already recording. The whole family, everybody that was there was already, filming with the cameras. He's like, no, go on Facebook Live, so people
that was
can
like
see
the
it.
best thing.
Yeah. Which for me, that's not something I would have thought of, because I don't really do Facebook Live. I'm not on there a ton.
Right.
But I was like, okay, I'll do that.
Right.
I'll get on Facebook Live. So I got on there, and I remember I had the baby like in one hand.
Yeah.
I was trying to find, I was just
and
like, okay, press
shaking and panicking.
And then, but by the time I did that, Levi had just been, they were like, get out of the car.
Oh my
And he was
gosh.
like, can I speak to my attorney? And they were like, we're not doing this. And
so
I'm like shaking because they're taking him out. Right. And so I'm trying to watch him get arrested and then get on live. And I think the first moment I filmed was when he was already arrested and cuffed, but they were walking him away. And I was right behind. The windows were tinted, so you couldn't really see from the video. But I was right here in the back of the truck holding Cyrus, and Levi's face was slammed up against right here, and
Oh
Cyrus
my
could even
gosh.
see it.
Oh my gosh.
It was like, okay, wow, this is crazy. So I got on Facebook Live. I think most of the time I kind of forgot that I had it on, but then I'd like try to remember and be like, okay, face it. I held it this way, like, okay, make sure I'm trying to get like their faces and
Yeah.
you know what's in there. And yeah, then they went around, they arrested Miranda. And I thought, because I heard them say she was under arrest for felony injury to a child. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's what they're trying to arrest me for,
Right.
right? So I'm thinking, a felony? Like, if it's a felony, I'm not going to be able to. I mean, I was thinking, can I even bail out? I don't really know how this works, right?
Right.
So I'm just totally freaking out. But then, you know, like I said, I prayed that. I just praying, like praying so much. And then I know my mom was praying. Before they started arresting us, my dad actually, when they were just all standing around and they were trying to create like, they were clearing it out to create. They're getting like a whole, I don't know, parameter, I guess. And we could see something was happening. Like, we knew, okay, they're going to try to do some stuff, and they backed my dad up. And he actually, you know, was a preacher for 10 years. And so he started praying. He was praying loud. He was praying in the name of Jesus, you know, help these men to make the right decision, you know, touch their hearts, all this stuff. And they were actually like, you could look over, I think we have video of some of them like laughing and actually like mocking him for his prayers. And I was just like,
So
oh my goodness,
disgusting.
it's disgusting. But, you know, he's praying. They need to make the right decision because it's his grandson's life on the line here.
Right.
But everybody was praying. And then he started singing Amazing Grace. We're all like singing Amazing Grace here. I don't think any of this was on film. But just praying and praying, like, oh, I keep praying under my breath, in my head, out loud, just like, God, how God, we need, like, I need you right here so bad. Just, you know, please, you know, give me the strength. I just wanted the strength because I felt so weak. I felt so much fear that I was just like weakened with that fear, right? Like in my body too. I was like, I can't even like hold the baby or hold the phone or, and then they arrested my sister. They came around, and when they opened the door, that's when I was like, okay, this is it. This is it right here. And the officer started, you know, promising me things, and they wanted to take the baby to pat me down. And I thought, oh no, they're gonna try to like lie to me and take the baby right there. So I don't know if I never rewatched that video. I saw the part. I've seen the part in the ambulance many times played over, but that first video I've never actually watched. But I remember that, you know, he kept promising, okay, you could stay with the baby, you could stay with the baby. And for a moment there, I trusted him. Like, I was like, okay, you know, he's trying to help me. He's trying to help me. He's promising me I can stay with the baby. And he like almost convinced me. I knew, okay, they're like, I felt like they were lying, but at the same time, I was like, maybe I could trust him. Like, I was holding on to that hope. Like, maybe that hope is there, right? So I stayed right there in the middle. I was holding the baby, and they kept trying to get me to go into different cars or against something. And I think out of the way of people, right? Of people filming. And then finally, when they got me in the ambulance, I was like, okay, this is good. They got my diaper bag.
I'm checking it.
I was like, they got my diaper bag. I had everything in there with me. And I thought, okay, maybe I could actually go to the hospital with him. I'm okay with that. I'm totally fine with that. They can do whatever at this point, even if they run tests or, you know, whatever. I just want to be with him. Right. I just want custody, you know, all that.
Well, the thing is that people, I don't know if everybody knows. I mean, those close to you knew, but he needed your breast milk.
He did. So at this point, what the
every baby needs his mama.
Yes,
for sure. Yes. But Cyrus had an extra special need for you.
And at this point, what the doctors were thinking and the pediatrician thought, okay, it looks like this could be a case of FPIES, right? Where it's like a protein intolerance. And he would basically need to be on this really strict diet, which we had already put him on. I was on a really strict diet, I think for the 6 weeks leading up to that, where it was like a nothing diet. Like, I had eliminated,
all the allergens,
all dairy, all grains, including oats, corn, like everything, garlic, onion, different, like a bunch of things. Right. So I had eliminated all of that. And it was like, okay, you can only take this, not just any breast milk, my breast milk, right? That's on this diet.
Right, which was evident because we got you some breast milk to be able to give to him through a bottle because they wouldn't let you go in and feed, which is so absurd. And he didn't keep it down because that mama that was pumping wasn't on your same diet.
So that, that was so upsetting. But that I told that to the officer. I was like, he can
He
only
needs
have
me.
my breast milk. He
Yes.
needs me.
Right.
And he was like, sorry, like that's the decision that's been made. I'm like, well, who makes the decision? And then he was like, oh, it was Detective Hanson, I believe it was. And I remember looking over at him and I was like, I'll beg him. I'll be on my knees. I was like, whoever it is. And I looked over at him. He had like this smug smirk. Immediately when I made eye contact with him, I was like, there's no point. There's no point. Like I felt even more, I think on him specifically, I could just see some sort of evil. And I was like, oh, he's done this before and he knows what he wants. And I think also what they see as resisting, right? We're not just totally compliant, made him upset, right? And they're like, well, we're just going to take the kid because of that, right? They made him more, I don't know. I think so.
Well, I know. I mean, even CPS will do if you are saying, but I love my child and my child loves me and we, I'm such a good mom. And they're like, well, you have attachment disorder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So the more you say that, it's like there is a no win.
Yeah. No.
With CPS
Yeah,
and the police officers that are stealing your child. There's no win. There's no magic thing to say that makes them go, oh, well, I guess you do love your child. We'll go ahead and keep you united. No, they go, well, you're too attached.
Yeah.
As if there's such a thing.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
With your nursing
it's
baby.
Disgusting.
It just came out of your body.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You're still connected.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
And then, if we're going back to what they were concerned about was his weight loss. And he obviously had lost weight because he was vomiting, and they all kept being like, why did he lose weight? Why did he lose weight? And I would tell the doctors, even the officers are told, he's been vomiting. When he vomits, he loses weight. When he's not vomiting, he eats, he gains weight. Like, this is super simple, okay?
Right.
There's no underlying issue. He's not being underfed. He's just vomiting a lot.
Right.
And that's why he lost weight. And they were assuming, I guess, that we weren't feeding him enough. Because why did they take him? They were thinking it was neglect. We weren't feeding him enough. And so for me, I was like, how I told this to officer too, how am I harming if I'm just right there? Right there. If the whole allegation here is that you didn't feed your baby enough, well, then if you take him into the hospital or whatever and you let me be there, it's not like I'm going to keep food away from him. Like, there's that doesn't make any sense. Right. I should at least be able to be there and you can watch and make sure he's fed.
Well, there's no sense in this whole thing.
No, there's no sense. So, and then obviously all those allegations were completely false. All of that was just garbage. And they were actually, what they were saying they were concerned about is that, we weren't feeding him enough, but by taking him away from me, they were taking away his sole nutrition source. And then the officer was like, oh, sorry, that's all we could do. And then they say, oh, we're just concerned for the baby. No, you're not. You're taking him away from his only food source. Right. You're making him in way worse condition. Right. So was incredibly frustrating.
Right. And then putting him in the hospital, and they still wouldn't let you come in and feed him.
Exactly. Still in the hospital.
And they're supposedly putting his needs first.
Yep.
How is that putting his needs first? The whole thing was absolutely psychotic.
We saw later at some point in the medical records where it said that when the hospital was going to do a visit, I don't know if it was like the day after he was taken, that CPS, that the Health and Welfare Department and the police department said, no, like, don't give them a visit. They didn't want that. And it said something about that. I'm not sure the exact verbiage, but I was like, oh my goodness, they didn't want that. They didn't want us to be together. They didn't want to allow that. It's evil. It's wickedness.
It is evil.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so the Lord gave you some peace. You were at least able to stand.
Strength, enough,
strength
just
to
enough.
Stand. Just enough.
Yeah. I almost fell when I stepped out of the truck. But seriously, it was like, yeah.
Oh my gosh. The other thing I saw that was so stupid online, I'm sure you guys saw it too, was that, well, why does she keep putting chapstick on?
Oh, did I?
Well, but you're stressed. One of the things that happens when you're stressed is
I do that anyways.
Right?
I do that anyways. I do put on a lot of chapstick, but I was also dehydrated and I needed chapstick.
Stressed. And you were telling me like this happens to me when I get stressed.
Yeah, I do.
Your lips were red.
They were so red. Yeah.
Yes.
That's what happens when I cry too. I get like red patches on my eyebrows and my mouth. But yes, I did.
Like, people are so dumb.
Yeah.
Like, really, you're gonna pick this mom apart and be like, well, but she's putting on chapstick.
Yeah.
So
there's child trafficking happening here. Why are you putting on chapstick?
I know, it's just so weird.
Yeah,
but
there's
it's
a lot
also
of
like a stress thing too. Mm-hmm. Like, you were stressed, and so
I guess it was just like something to do.
Something to do, and something to eliminate something that was hurting with all this other thing, that was hurting way worse that you couldn't fix at the time.
Oh, and by the way, they took it away, and then when I was in jail, they were like really trying. Mine was really chapped.
Oh my gosh, they took your chapstick in jail.
Yeah, they take everything.
Can you believe she went to jail?
Yeah, so that part, right? So then they arrest me, and I remember thinking, because in the video too, it's funny. The officer was like, hand over the baby or you're gonna go to jail, which horrible. I mean, heartless, right?
Totally heartless.
Totally heartless. But then I was like, for how long? Like, how long, would I be going to jail? And the reason I was asking that is because I thought, well, because I hadn't been arrested yet, and I assumed they were going to arrest me for felony injury to a child. And so I thought, if it's a felony, like, can I get bailed out, or am I just going to stay in there? How does this work? Right. So that's why I said for how long, because I wanted to go follow him to the hospital. I wanted to get in with him. I was like, I bet we can get into the hospital. Maybe I could stay overnight with him and breastfeed. And he was already due for a feeding. So I knew I was probably hours away from mastitis, which any moms that have had babies before understand what that's like. And then the stress of it too was like more. I think I had like a letdown here. But anyways, that's probably why, because I was so stressed.
Right.
But we took him, or they took him. It was horrible. Like when they took him, I knew it was going to happen, but it was just like, I almost felt like it was part of my soul, like it was just gone.
Right.
And when the officer came over to take him, he had already said, like, hand him over so no further harm is done. And I thought, you know what? They don't care. They'll rip him out and cause a scene and drop him or hurt him.
Right.
So I already know they're going to take him no matter what. Right. I'm not going to give him up, but I'm not going to resist. So I just let them take him as easy as possible. I didn't want him to get hurt. And then I told the EMS lady, I told her, I was like, like, please take care of him. Promise me I'll take care of him. And she was like, I promise I'll take care of him. And I was like, crying, promise me I'll take care of him. And I remember from what I remember, I looked over and Cyrus had just started saying mama for like a couple weeks. He started this new word, saying this new word, right? And I was in handcuffs. I had my hands behind my back, and they were taking me down the steps of the ambulance. And I remember I looked up and I was like, I love you, Cyrus. I love you, Cyrus. I love you, Cyrus. As many times as I could. And I remember I looked up and he had his little arms over and he was like mouth, like mama, like the last thing. And that's the last thing I saw of him. And I didn't know how long, right? I didn't know, is it going to be weeks? Is it going to be months? Is it going to be ever? Is it going to be tomorrow? Yeah.
Yeah. And sadly, you guys, this is common. This scene that you lived out, I've seen over and over and over. I've heard parents tell me about it over and over and over. And like you said, the heartlessness that's taking place by all these 20 people standing around. And
nobody intervenes.
Nobody intervenes. Nobody there has a heart to say, you can clearly tell this mother loves her child. It's outrageous to me. I don't understand it. I couldn't stand by. I know you couldn't stand by.
Yeah.
Neither one of us could stand by and watch a child and a mother be ripped apart from each other.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So I went, they arrested me. They put me in the back of the police car. And I remember asking, I believe it was the arresting officer that was driving. And there was another one in the front. And I said some things to them. I can't really remember. I was asking them, like, if they had kids or if they thought that was right, whatever. Yeah. And then I asked them, I was like, can you guys pray with me for my son, for his safety, with where he's going? And they were kind of quiet. And one of the officers was like, you can pray. Like, you can do that. So I was like, okay. So I prayed probably like, one of the most fervent prayers I've ever prayed.
Out loud?
Yeah. I don't know how much they can hear though, because there was like, I don't know, the sounds of whatever they had up there. Oh. I prayed out loud and I prayed in my head. It was like, I was just praying, like begging God, please keep my son safe. Send nurses to him that are angels to him, that are going to treat him right, that are going to take care of him, that aren't going to cause him trauma, just protect him, keep him in your hands. And just like, we're already at this point now, please protect him. And I left it at that. No, okay. I prayed that God's going to protect him. God is going to protect him. He's going to be okay. And we're going to figure out what to do next. Right. So then they take me to the jail. They're booking us in, and it was crazy because it was a Friday night. There were other DUIs, it's like, we're in here, with these criminals, right? And then they pull into the warehouse, and then I see another cop car pulling, and my sister gets out in handcuffs. I'm like, oh darn, they didn't let her go. They kept her. She didn't do anything, right?
Right.
So she's like, you got arrested. They took the baby. I guess she didn't know, right? Because she was in the back of the cop car the whole time. So they book us in, and we're just in shock at this point. I mean, we're kind of like, you know,
Right.
didn't know what to do. At this point, it was just kind of like, okay, what's happening? What's going to happen next? And we were in there. We were waiting for a while. We were on the phones trying to call my parents, trying to call the attorneys, trying to talk to people on the phone. You know what's going on. And my sister says she was on the phone with my mom, and she tells me we're both on the phones in the jail. You know that don't work. And she's like, Ammon got arrested. He came down, and I was like, oh my word, he came down. And he drove all the way down. That's a pretty far drive for him, and he was there. Which, by the way, you know, later we found out completely saved my son from going to foster care. What Ammon did, and sending a message out through People's Rights. And so Ammon and People's Rights, we owe so much thanks to. And for anybody who's in Idaho and even in the country, being a part of People's Rights in that network is so important. If we didn't have them that night, we wouldn't have the community. We wouldn't have a way to reach out to the community and for people to see that. Right. So if you're not part of People's Rights, that's something you have to do immediately.
Get
sure.
on it. Yeah.
Get on it. And what Ammon did, didn't care. He's running a race for governor.
Yeah.
No politician would ever put themselves on the line like that. They'd be like,
they pretend like it's not happening.
I've got an election to run. You know, I mean, we even saw this with several politicians throughout the whole case with Baby Cyrus, because you know, the May elections were coming up, and so there's a lot of people being careful. I don't really want to say, you know, I've got an election coming up in May. And with him, he didn't care. He was like, something wrong is happening. I'm going to go down. And he risked that, and he had courage. He didn't care. He was like, I'm going to stand for what's right. And they arrested him over. They took him to jail. So I believe he still has a court case over that. But
and what did they arrest him for?
They arrested him. He was on St. Luke's property, and he was just. I saw the video later. He was just standing there talking. Nobody had said anything to him. He was just standing there, and they just came and arrested him.
Oh my goodness.
Just like that. And the charges, I believe, were trespassing.
Oh my goodness.
Trespassing on private property. Yep. And they arrested his campaign manager. Just horrible. So there were 4 arrests that night. And we were in the jail. They just were like coming in one by one, and we're like saying hi to our friends. It was crazy. I was trying to keep a straight head on and not go completely nuts. And I think it was kind of at some point emotionally, after Cyrus was taken, I put up this wall somehow. Did. And that whole week I was like an emotional disaster where I couldn't figure out how to handle my emotions. Cause I really I felt like I couldn't cry, but then I would just I would cry. And then it was just like so subdued. But then in the jail, my sister and I, we were just looking at each other, just shocked, not crying, showing no emotions, just didn't know what to do.
It's
shocked.
shock.
It's shock.
Yeah.
And
for the rest of us watching you, you looked totally poised and put together. No. You did though.
Oh my goodness. I still haven't watched that whole video. So I'll start to see the beginning and I'm like, oh, but I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it.
I was like, that must be a God thing.
It totally was. Anything that was there was totally a God thing, because if you could see the mess I was the whole day leading up, it was totally God. I prayed, and it was totally God that I was able to handle that. So
when you told me how you had prayed, ahead of time,
and
even as you wanted to have a baby, I mean, from the beginning. So I hope everybody's getting the trail of the story.
Yes. So first praying for the son, and then promising to dedicate him as a child. I remember praying as a child, and then I was like, wait a second, what could he do as a child? After I prayed, I remember thinking it through, and I was like, ooh, I was kind of a little bit nervous about that, but you know what? He's not gonna, God's not gonna put us in anything terrible that He can't get us through. Right.
I remember praying for patience, and then I had 4 kids, and then I was like, never mind, God, I don't need patience that bad.
Yeah, for sure.
But you're like, I'm going to keep doing it. Yeah. I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep on, because God's got this.
Yes, and very specifically.
Even though you were afraid, even
scared.
though you were terrified.
Yes.
But you still walked in your faith, and I think that's one of the most beautiful parts of this story that really hasn't been told.
Yeah.
And I knew because we were friends, but I was like, we've got to tell everybody else that your faith walk through this.
Yeah.
Because it was really amazing.
And so very specifically.
At 21 years old.
Yeah.
I definitely didn't have it together.
My parents have led with such a great example of faith and also taught us that, something in your life, you have to build up treasures in heaven. You don't want to just make it and just be a good person. You have to build up treasures in heaven. And so that was something that was on our minds, both Levi and myself. And so that's what we were praying for when we were talking about what are we going to do now for the kingdom of God. We were like, what are we doing to build up treasures in heaven, right? We don't want to just take care of our family and be good Christians and go to protests and be like, anti-corruption, all that stuff. We want to do something to build up treasures in heaven that's gonna change people's lives and stop evil from happening, right? And so very specifically, that's what it was.
This is right in the heart of that.
Right in the heart of that, it is. And so we prayed that, and we prayed it so much. We prayed it so much.
Oh my goodness.
In different versions and all the way, like for months. This is after we had Cyrus too. So all leading up to that. And then I prayed the day before with this case specifically, not just like in our life in general. With Cyrus, I see he's not getting healed. We're trying to figure it out. Give us the wisdom to find what we need to for his healing. But then at the same time, like if you're trying to do something here, I don't want to push that away, out of fear. Right. Like use us. If you're trying to use us, I know I've already been asking up until this point, and then now that it's coming, I don't want to shy away from it. So just use us. And I prayed that, and so scared. Wow. So scared.
Even as you're praying it, you're apprehensive.
Oh my word. Yeah. And then I felt bad for being apprehensive because I was like, no, don't do that. Just do it. Like pray it. Don't even think twice. Right. So we kind of just used these emotions and then, going through this. And then as it happened, even in the jail, I was like, okay, say a silent prayer. And like, just all along, I just kept being like, God walk with me. And I prayed that too. I want to feel like you're with me the whole time. Because then I feel like somebody said before that, the enemy in front of you, it may seem big, but it's nowhere near as big as the God behind you.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
So I was like, I want to feel God with me at all times. And then I'll feel the confidence, and I'll feel safe, and I'll feel like we can get through this. That gives me that strength. Right. It was so dark. And I actually remember praying. So I was praying like, it's so dark and I'm afraid to walk through the darkness. But if you hold my hand, Jesus, I know I can get through it. And I really felt that. And when I said this so many times, I was telling my mom, I could feel it like physically over me. I could feel this like safety and protection and like peace. Like God was right with me the whole time. So I knew that. And I think part of maybe all those prayers and me getting peace was maybe that was part of that wall that went up. And it's been difficult trying to break that down after it's all ended because even now I feel like there's something, I don't know if it's like not a coldness, or it's just like I can't really put myself deep into emotions anymore. I feel like it's just surface level because there's so much, and it's like it's a defense mechanism. And there's different things I've tried, but I think maybe with time, it will all be fully healed. But it's just like even I had so many moms coming up to me telling me what happened to their kids, and that was scary, and that was discouraging.
Oh yeah.
And I almost got discouraged several times because I was like, I have faith. This is all, and I could see as things were happening, and people were coming out, rallying and protesting, and I'm like, this is God set this all up, and I'm like, how far back did this go? And as things are happening, then I can see, I remember when that connection was made, and it's perfect for this because of this, and you can just see God's been planning this out for a long time.
Right.
And, maybe this is something he needed done. He had all these people doing this, and then he needed, a family. And then here's me over here praying. Your family,
specifically.
And praying, like, family. Use us, right? We're ready. Just use us.
He was already strengthening you and getting your faith in the right spot.
Absolutely. And there were so many things that I think, both my husband, myself that we talked about, like, things that we would do differently or things that we thought, we could change that, or we needed to have more faith here, or we were too weary there. And we were nowhere near perfect throughout the whole thing at all. And I think we made a lot of mistakes, but all throughout we were trying to seek God, and like just, it was so ugly and so dark that it's like, no matter how many protesters, no matter how many people rallying, no matter how many politicians, no matter how much publicity, no matter what is done there, which all of that was also a complete miracle in itself. Yeah. We got everybody. I mean, it was insane. Right. But even with all of that, if we don't have God on our side, nothing, we have no hope. Right. We have no hope.
Right.
So I told him, I was like, this is the kind of thing that we need God to help us. We absolutely need God. So we just need to stay in that. And I believe it was like the second or third day, we finally went back to our house. My husband and I went in. We just wouldn't even talk. We were just like writing in silence. There was still so much shock, horror. We get home and we go upstairs. And I remember we saw, the baby's crib, his little toys, everything just left as is. And we were like, oh my word, just so, because, normally we come in with the baby, we take him out of his car seat, we tickle him, mess with him, and just kind of just how it normally is, like when life is okay. And it's just not, it was just so dark and cold and everything was so, I feel like traumatized,
Yeah.
And so we went in there, we sat down, we talked everything through. We're like, okay, as a couple, we need to get on the same page with this. And, my husband talked about where he was with it, where I was with it. We were both understanding with each other as we had this conversation. Like, look, we're both probably not going to be our best selves for a little while here, but we're going to allow that space for each other. And just, some of us, we're going to be exhausted. We're going to be, shocked. We might not be able to say much. We might not, there's all this is going to happen, and we're not going to expect a lot from each other, basically. But
that's really good advice.
Yeah,
because CPS destroys families.
Absolutely destroys families, and we understood that, and we were very blessed to have a good marriage. And we're like, we're not going to let them. We specifically, like, I believe that God brought that to us for this reason too, because he knew that we could stay strong in our marriage through this. And we were like, we are not going to waver. We're going to stay no matter what. Yeah. Levi said this, he was like, no matter what happens, it is never anything happening to either one of us. It's never bad coming to me or bad coming to you. It's never either of us against each other. It's always the outside stuff coming to us together. Yes. We're one. It's never us against each other.
That's such
if something
wisdom.
Happens, it's to both of us.
Right.
We don't separate. We don't. There's nothing there. We stay together. Even if, because they sometimes, we heard they try to pin you against each other in court. We're like, we're aware of that. Not going to work. We're already solid in our relationship. And our relationship that is centered on God. And so he said that, like, look, it's we're staying together through this, and we're going to do this. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. This is what we're going to do. And then we also talked about how, our heads were really down that day, right? It was horrible. It was the next day. And he was like, look, if we're going to do this, if we're going to be like soldiers doing work that God needs us to do, we can't just be like with our heads down and like suffering through it. We got to push. Let's go. Like, if anything, this is an honor, right? That this is something huge we could be doing here. And God would choose us, right? And it's so humbling. It's like, wow. And then it kind of makes you think, wow, that God knows every person. He knows how many hairs we have on head, all of that, and that. But it's like, wow, he even thought of me and put together plans that I was involved in, right? That that we could be a part of, that he could use my family. It's so humbling, and it's just like, I want to do good. I want to do good. I don't want to just suffer through it. We have to
such a good point.
Yeah, we were trying to not. We were just trying to just push through. Like, we got to take this head on. And so we're like, we're going to try everything. We were so blessed throughout it. So many people helped. With everything, just everything coming together. It's so much, and I felt bad so many times because so many people were doing so much, and I felt like I could never say thank you enough. And then I also wasn't emotionally present. And then there's just so much. And
I'll speak on behalf of all of us. Nobody expected that.
Yeah. Right. But I feel like that's
it.
what, at least and that I wanted to, because that's what I feel. I'm like, everybody's doing something. Thank you so much, everybody. There's like little kids passing there holding signs, and I'm like, thank you. Like, oh my goodness, I can't believe all this. It was crazy. But the other thing too is that once he was taken, I remember I got really bad mastitis, like really bad. Man. And the hospital called me and said, that they would let me into nursing later that evening, maybe, but maybe not. They didn't know.
Yeah.
So, and then I
Depends
didn't have
on how good you behave.
Exactly. Yeah. They were trying to figure things out. And then they had my breast pump in the diaper bag that they didn't return to me. Right. So I'm like, okay. And I didn't really know what to do. And then I'm like, if I'm going to nurse, I want to nurse him, and I didn't want to pump anyways. Right. So it was kind of this whole thing, and I got so sick from it. I had a fever, like
Oh
it
my
was
gosh.
just not ideal, right? And then after that, I basically lost my milk supply completely,
Oh.
and it still has never come back. I still fought for it. Like I went to a lactation consultant who was amazing and helped so much, but it's just that was all part of it. So there was the physical, and the not sleeping, and then we just every day had to pray for strength, and our family, we had our family group chat. Everybody was so encouraging. My brother or my sister and brother-in-law flew in from out of state where they lived, stayed with us. We're like, we'll take care of you guys. My parents prayed for us every day. My brother's praying for us. Everybody just dropping everything. Our family from other states dropping everything like on top of it. Some of them making videos, some posting on social media, doing whatever. Just everybody supporting us. Like, we're
Right.
here for you. We're here for you. And I remember telling my sister, because my older sister, she was saying, I don't know how you can get through this, or this is, trying to encourage me through it. And I told her, look, if you ever see me, like faltering or getting discouraged or anything, just try to remind me to have faith to get through it. Just remind me to know that God is in control. That's all I need, because I just need to get centered on that. And it was so easy to get discouraged, especially since I can't tell you the dozens and dozens, at least over 100 mothers coming up saying, I'm so sorry, this happened to me. It took me 2 years to get my kids back. It took me 8 months to get my kids back.
Yeah.
Mine was taken away at birth. I didn't see him for a year. It took years. Some of them still, I've never seen my kids. I don't know where they're at right now. Some of them, I lost my home. I lost everything,
It's awful.
everything.
It's awful.
It was horrible. And then me realizing that, oh my goodness, from what CPS does, I have it the easiest,
Right.
right? I mean, nobody gets this level of support: financial support, spiritual support,
Right.
family and friends, emotional. Nobody gets
No,
this.
they're
How do they
very
do
alone. They're
How do
very,
they do
very
it?
alone.
They're so alone.
Yeah.
And so for me to think of that, I was like, even though there was our own suffering that was happening in our family, I felt like guilty from I don't want to. I felt bad that I was feeling bad, right? Because I'm like, this is nothing comparison to what they're going through, right? And they don't have that help and support. And I'm over here all set up, and we have all this help. And so it was like that guilt that I had because of that, and then the feeling bad, like I got to do something, right? I got to do something. We got to do something to help these people. And then also these people are all saying how bad it is that you're not going to get your kid back to the shelter. You're hearing all of this stuff. Like, am I ever going to see him again? And then me being like, okay, no, I have to have faith. And then some people were asking well, how can you say that you have faith that this is God's will? Is it always God's will? And I think the answer to that is no. It's never God's will for children to be trafficked, for CPS to take kids. That's never God's will. It's never in His will. But if this was something that was going to happen and it needed to be exposed in its time,
yes,
and there needed to be a willing family, because this happens to people all the time, right? But just if once or twice or 10 times or 100 times it crosses into the path of people who will or can or have connections that will expose it and do something about it, this is God's work, right? This is then that is His will for for all these things to be done, for the corruption to be exposed, for all that. I do believe is His will. And I think normally in any other circumstance, if I hadn't prayed all those things and I didn't have the faith that I had, I wouldn't think it was God's will. It would just be like, look, this happens. It happens 4 times a day in Idaho. We're just another one of statistics, right? And we were, but at the same time, God set up so much so that He could use this thing that happens all the time and use it to expose the horror and the evil that's happening. So I will say,
I've been speaking out about CPS since probably 2017.
Wow.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
And, what your family went through blew the lid off of it.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of us speaking out,
yeah.
but with the censorship on Facebook and even Twitter and everything else, then we're just speaking to this echo chamber where I'm like, CPS is bad. And everybody says back to me, CPS is bad.
Yeah.
Right. It's hard. It's very hard now to get out to new ears. Unless I can get a stage and a microphone, on social media, it's very hard to, break past that. But what you went through with your family blew the lid off of it and reached people that were still thinking CPS does what is the best interest of the child. And people would say to me, can you believe what's happening to Marissa, right? Baby Cyrus. And I would say, this
unfortunately,
is happening all the time.
Yeah.
I know this is horrific, but our CPS is doing this every single day to people all around you, but they're too afraid to talk or they don't have the means. And so it gave me the opportunity to even talk to people in our group that didn't realize how bad it was. But the fact that you guys recorded was obviously a God thing in your parental training, right? And so the recording says it all. And so the things that I've tried to say and explain to people, because parents are too afraid to talk. They're afraid that if they did get their children back, they're afraid that caseworkers are going to show up and take their kids again if they speak out. That's part of the mental abuse that happens, and it trains parents not to talk. So then if they've lost their children, then they're afraid to talk because they feel like they might lose hope of ever seeing them again. So then I'm always trying to talk and be the mouthpiece for people who are talking to me, but it isn't enough. It isn't enough. Seeing it in real time blew the lid off of it. And I felt guilty for thinking this because I'm your friend and I love you and I love Cyrus and I love your family. But I was like, if there was any family that could expose CPS, it's this family. Absolutely. I would never wish it upon you. I would never ever wish it upon you. Because I wouldn't even wish it upon my worst enemy.
I wouldn't.
No,
absolutely not.
It's
absolutely
horrific. Not. But I was like, man, if there's any family that can walk through this and expose the depth of the corruption of CPS, it's this family. So then my prayer just became like your prayer, like, protect them and protect Cyrus and reunite this family quickly. Expose what needs to be exposed, and then bring Cyrus home.
Absolutely, yes.
You know? And that's what he did.
All that happened. It's crazy, and even like towards the end, everything we prayed, like we were just like being strong, and we were just like almost like trying to artificially even act strong and just like, okay, we got this. But every night we had to go to sleep without Cyrus, and it was just getting harder and harder.
Oh man,
and
I could see it wearing on for sure.
It's like, oh my goodness.
Well, every day you're going home to the house without Cyrus. I mean, it's just it's torture.
Horrible. It's horrible. And we all prayed like, okay, I remember telling my mom, was like, I don't know. I'm like, I'm not trying to get weird or anything, but I'm just like, this is really hard. Something needs to happen. Like it really needs to happen because this is like something needs to change. It needs to turn around because it's getting really, really difficult. And, we had a visit.
You were seeing Cyrus, right?
We had a visit with him. He didn't look well, and then I was like, it almost was as if like he didn't even remember us too. Which I know he was just feeling sick, but like he saw us, he reached his arms out, but he was just kind of there and lethargic, and he wasn't himself, and it was just, it was horrible. I was like, oh my goodness, if he's here. After I saw him, that was like I think one of the first times I just completely lost it. And I remember afterwards, we left the hospital. I got in the truck and I called my dad, and I was just bawling and. Levi and I were just hugging and crying, and we were just bawling. Like it was horrible. We just lost it. After seeing him, it was the worst. I was like, he can't, because then we're thinking, how long is he going to be here like this for? And they don't know how to care for him. I'm thinking he's going to get better. And then, he was supposed to be better that next morning after they took him. And the medical records, it shows that he went to the hospital and he was drinking bottles. He was fine. He should have been totally better by morning. But by the next day, he stopped drinking. He wouldn't drink bottles anymore. He wouldn't drink from the bottle, and he wouldn't eat at all. And he was getting worse. So they called him, like, we're going to have to put a feeding tube in because he won't eat. And I was like, he'll eat. Like, I can nurse him. I've got plenty. I'm doing this.
Right.
Like, and they didn't let me. So after we saw him in that condition, and it's just like, this can't go. I mean, his next episode's going to come. Those first couple of days are really rough. The protocol for caring for him is so specific, and only Levi and I know how to do it. Right,
because
we
you're
take
his
care
parents.
of him. Yes, we're his parents. We know. We've watched him.
God gave
24/7.
him to you,
yes,
not the state.
Yes, exactly. And then they're asking me like, "Oh, what to do for this? What to do for that?" And I'm like, "Just I'm back."
Right. And what is the reasoning? Did they ever give you a reason? I mean, I'm sure it's absolutely nonsense. But what was their reasoning for not letting you breastfeed Cyrus?
Oh, I don't know. It wasn't safe. Yeah. Yeah, nothing giant. And then I think they were concerned for the hospital staff and everything too. And by the way, when we went in for that visit, I think there were like 7 police officers and a couple security guards that escorted us to the room to see Cyrus. Yeah. So that was crazy. But all throughout it, I mean, I think for me that, and we did have a gag order, so we weren't doing interviews, we weren't doing anything. But anybody that, is our close friends or anyone behind closed doors knows that side, the faith side of it. And for me, like my husband and I were talking about this the other day. I was like, this whole thing was a spiritual journey. It was faith. It was, God was completely involved. That's the whole story for me.
Yeah.
For me in my personal spiritual journey, this was the whole thing. Right. And so now, that it's over and I haven't really done many interviews. I think we did the one with Stu Peters, and that was actually a really long interview. They got all this information, but wouldn't off in the documentary. So I'm glad that I'm able to share this all now, because I just want to be able to encourage other people that the pretty much, after going through this, I understand that the only way to get through it and come out okay even is with God. It's God and it's family and it's community. So we had God, we had our faith, we had each other, we stayed strong. My husband and I stayed strong in our marriage. And even though it was like the worst times we've ever been through, our marriage still came out stronger on the other end. Cause now we've been in the trenches together. We've fought together for our son. And, we use that, really to just grow our relationship. But we had family. Now I think we really understood the importance of family after that. Being close to family, family coming through for you. I mean, my dad, what he did is like, who would do that, right? Obviously your dad would do anything for you, but it's like, somebody that my dad happened to be able to have those skills, the connections, the platform, and he just everything. And so he just took it. He stopped working. Yeah, absolutely. My family was supposed to move. They stopped their move. My family that was already living in Florida, they came over, they stopped working. Everybody in my family basically didn't work for about 4 months, and it's just now like everyone's working now, but just stop what they're doing. We're here. Everybody, there was no selfishness from anybody. It was just like, we're here to help. Nobody thought about themselves. Nobody cared. It was just like, everybody had so much going on in life, but it just all dropped.
None of it was.
And my dad did now, I think, almost 50 interviews, and to have to retell that story from his side, which is incredibly traumatic for him. To have to watch, your 2 daughters arrested, your son-in-law, and then your grandson be taken. You can't do anything about it, right? Or he would be arrested or even shot, right? Right. So that's incredibly difficult. And he just, so many interviews, he had to retell that story so many times, and he did that for us. And we couldn't, I don't think we had the emotional bandwidth to do even one interview, to be honest, in the middle of all that. And he just did it. He didn't complain, but he did it. He was on it. He was writing articles. He did those exposés on, everybody just knew what they needed to do and just did it. And so having our family like that was just absolutely amazing. I realized the blessing of it. And then the community, like I said, people's rights. And I think just having that swift reaction is incredibly important. So for anybody that's, I think, going through something like this, on top of your faith, on top of having faith, that's something, even if you didn't start with that, it's never too late. You can bring God into it and have him take over and see how things change from there. And I think that's a huge thing to take away from this. And then on top of that, if you can get a swift reaction from the community, that's why filming is a huge thing. If you have CPS come to your door, start recording. You don't have to be hidden about it. Start recording. Record the whole thing. Go live if you have to. Whatever you do, get that out there. Reach out to people's rights. Reach out to Health Freedom Idaho. I would make sure you are a member of Heritage Defense, I believe. Be a member of Heritage Defense. Have all these resources there for yourself, so there's a swift community reaction, right? And I think that's majorly what helps, to just record everything. And I think those are some of the best things. The best things you could do. And
I agree 100%.
And avoid big hospitals. That's
one of the things I've been saying for a long time. If they don't change their policies, people are going to stop going to the hospital. And it's already happening. People aren't going because they're afraid that they're going to have their children taken from them. So it's backfiring. If they have good intentions, it's backfiring. And that's a big if. Well, I hope you all are as encouraged as I have been. Being friends with you has been, faith strengthening for me.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Really watching you go through what you went through, and me thinking, I don't want that. I don't want that.
Yeah.
But you were like, I'll take it
Yeah.
and I'll do it.
I felt those same feelings that you're saying. I felt that. Like, that's what my flesh was like, no, just go
Right.
back, have it. And it was crazy because it seemed like life was so perfect for us. We had everything we wanted overnight. Everything was gone.
Right.
Life changed. We lost our business. Everything was lost. But I think at the end, what's going to be gained from it is so worth it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of healing happening, still in our family, even with me. I hope that telling the story doesn't, I feel like I'm not emotionally, don't show like accurate emotions for different things because there's so much like that's closed off, and then
Right.
some things are a little bit of a trigger, and then
Right.
sometimes I'm just like, nope, that's too much, put up a wall. And
Right.
so my even sometimes when I'm talking to people about stuff today and they're talking to me about their stories, I feel like I'm not properly emotionally present. And so that's something I'm trying to, I don't know, maybe time healing, going through all that. I will be like, I guess you could say, my normal
Right.
self again. So yeah, that's all part of it. But just having faith in God has absolutely gotten us through. And I mean, we're to this point now. We couldn't be more grateful.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well,
wow.
I'm grateful for you as well,
Thank
because
you.
you woke up a lot of people and now you've shared your faith with a lot of people. So I hope you all are as blessed as I am to know Marissa and to know some of the faith and her backstory of what was taking place during that time. I'm going to go enjoy their family now
Yes.
and give Cyrus
Yes.
some kisses and just have a really good evening with my friends. So good night for now all.
Thank you so much for
Good
having me. Good
night.
night.